Somalia and Turkey have signed a new security pact that commissions the Turkish Navy to train and equip its Somali counterpart over the next 10 years. The pact is as much about Mogadishu's sense of security as it is about Ankara's ambition to project maritime power beyond its shores. The details of the agreement are not entirely public, but shortly after, Turkey and Somalia signed a second deal that allows Turkish oil and gas exploration in Somali waters. In effect, Somalia has leased all its territorial waters and marine resources to Turkey. Relations between the two are not recent or surprising. The Turks have been active in Somalia at a time when everyone else abandoned them. Economic and diplomatic ties run deep. Turkey has the most successful training and equipping programs in the world running in Somalia. Hundreds of professional Somali officers are graduating annually from this program. Now, bilateral ties are about to enter a new strategic phase. Through these two deals with Somalia, Turkey will bring in new contracts for its defense industry and, presumably, other Turkish business interests while cementing its military presence in the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea. However, the security pact comes with strategic obligations because to whom much is entrusted, much is expected. Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We live in what feels like the most anxious era ever. It's not necessarily the most dangerous period, but it seems as such. It's all too easy to get overwhelmed by today's confusing world. That's why I'm a big advocate for controlling what you can actually control, your mental health. Get help that is better. BetterHelp is professional counseling done with a licensed professional therapist online. After the service assesses your needs, you get matched for weekly phone or video sessions with one of over 30,000 expert therapists. You can log into your account at any time to send them messages and change your counselor at any time for free. So don't sit in a waiting room, don't get stuck with the only therapist in your area, don't pay any more than you have to because there is access to financial aid. If there's something in the way of achieving all your personal goals, try going to betterhelp.com/CaspianReport for 10% off your first month. Over 4 million people have already tried this and found some solace in their neuronal thunderstorms. Mental health is health. Try health that is better. BetterHelp. Somalia might well be the definition of a failed state. Ruined, poor, divided, isolated, and dangerous, Somalia is not a place investors generally look to do business in. Yet, it has had one ally that has stood by its side in state building: Turkey. Since 2011, Turkish humanitarian aid has flown into Somalia uninterrupted. Turkish NGOs became involved in development and relief projects, while Turkish multinationals, such as Turkish Airlines, promoted campaigns to raise funds for Somalia. Since entering Somalia, Ankara has provided more than $1 billion in aid for programs in healthcare, education, public services, and infrastructure. For an economy the size of Somalia, that $1 billion is a small fortune. Eventually, though, humanitarian support turned into a strategic one. Turkey applied economic and infrastructure aid to Somalia and then increasingly included military aid as well. In 2014, Turkey reopened Mogadishu's seaport and airport. To this day, both are managed by Turkish companies, and Somalia's economic situation has improved compared to previous decades. Later, Turkey led an international partnership to train and equip the Somali National Army. And in 2017, Turkey opened its first overseas military base in Mogadishu. From this military complex, some 5,000 Somali commandos known as Gorgor and an additional 10,000 regular troops have been trained. They make a world of difference in a land that has known nothing but chaos and destruction. Overall, the Turkish programs successfully brought Somalia back to a sense of normality. The country still has a long way to go. Al-Shabaab militants still roam the countryside and the economy is still weak, but Somalis may be forgiven for a moment of celebration. Thanks to the Turkish programs, there is a roadmap and a path forward. Somalia may yet rejoin the international community. However, having invested so much in Somalia, the Turks also want to protect their economic and political interests. Thus, expanding Turkey's naval presence in the Red Sea was the logical next step. In February 2024, Ankara and Mogadishu signed an agreement to train and equip Somalia's naval force and help patrol its 3,300-kilometer coastline. The deal is mutually beneficial. For Turkey, it's an opportunity to spread and grow its defense clientele. The Turkish defense sector is booming, and Ankara sees itself as an exporter of military hardware and as a partner in training special forces and law enforcement. Turkey is also one of the few countries with independent shipbuilding capabilities. So, the security pact with Somalia will lead to Mogadishu's procurement of Turkish naval platforms. Additionally, Africa is a massive market for security businesses and services, and Turkish weapons and arms are relatively affordable enough to seize a sizable market share in Africa. Somalia is thus appreciated as Turkey's gateway to large defense deals in the African marketplace. Moreover, given Somalia's proximity to global maritime traffic, Turkey considers its foothold part of a broader strategy to secure supply chains and create strategic depth in the maritime domain. The full details of the deal have yet to be disclosed, but they do include terms that split the revenue from activities in Somalia's exclusive economic zone. More specifically, Turkey gets a 30% share of marine revenues in return for bolstering Somalia's maritime security capabilities through training, joint operations, information sharing, and naval acquisitions. From the Somali angle, a 30% fee is not to be sniffed at. Building and maintaining a modern navy is one of the costliest programs a government can undertake, not to mention one of the most complicated ones. Nevertheless, stronger maritime security institutions and capacity are paramount for Somalia. The country's coastline is extensive. In fact, it is the longest of any African country. And so, Somalia is entitled to a vast exclusive economic zone that harbors significant marine life and possibly considerable hydrocarbon resources. As such, fresh off the heels of the security pact, Turkey and Somalia agreed to a second deal in early March, focusing precisely on oil and gas exploration. The energy deal could turn things around for Somalia. Geoseismic studies show that the country has potential oil and natural gas reserves equivalent to 30 billion barrels, placing it on par with oil-rich Kazakhstan. Mogadishu already has an exploration deal with US-based Coastline Exploration for 7 offshore blocks, and drilling is planned to start in 2025. With the new energy deal in effect, Turkish companies can be expected to join the Americans for the oil rush along the Somali coast. However, thanks to the security pact and the energy deal, Ankara has an advantage over Washington. Turkey's drilling fleet will be able to extract natural resources at a reduced cost compared to standard licensing agreements. This implies that the security pact and now the energy deal partially compensates Turkish naval activity through revenue generated from marine activities. For context, illegal and irregular fishing off its coast, as well as piracy, costs the Somali economy at least $300 million annually. With Turkey's involvement, Somalia will eventually be able to gather at least 70% of that sum, which would otherwise be completely inaccessible. Somalia's EEZ also has many submarine cables running through its seafloor, connecting marketplaces in the Persian Gulf with East Africa and the Red Sea. In particular, the Two Africa Cable and the Eastern Africa Submarine System Cable, both anchoring in Mogadishu, connect dozens of nations with one another. Whoever patrols these waters would thus gain supplementary bargaining power across the Indian Ocean. So, for both Ankara and Mogadishu, the benefits are mutually reinforcing, and the deal is politically and economically sensible. However, while Turkey and Somalia have been working on the maritime deal for some time, recent events have affected its timing. Just a month earlier, Ethiopia and Somaliland signed a memorandum of understanding under which Ethiopia gets a 50-year lease on a strip of land on Somaliland's coast for naval and commercial maritime use and access to the Berbera port. Turkey and Ethiopia have close economic and military ties, but the latter's encroachment on Somaliland, which is considered worldwide to be part of Somalia, could have repercussions that harm Turkish-Ethiopian relations in the future. Sovereignty lies at the heart of the dispute over the recent agreement with Somaliland. In exchange for the Berbera port deal, Ethiopia is considering recognizing the independence of the separatist Somaliland if it hasn't already de facto. Doing so openly, however, could impact the region's stability. For one, it sets a dangerous precedent. Ethiopia itself is not exactly the most secure and cohesive nation. Recognition of separatist forces could backfire and hit Ethiopia. Still, the Somaliland deal will enhance Ethiopia's landlocked state, giving it strategic and economic access to the open oceans and securing alternative routes to Djibouti's port, through which 95% of Ethiopian exports and imports pass. That said, the Somali-Turkish deal serves as a check and helps preserve Somalia's sovereignty against what it sees as foreign encroachment. But there is more to the security pact than deterring Ethiopia. Another point of consideration is the United Arab Emirates. When it comes to the Horn of Africa, the UAE is one of the main power brokers. It has dual-purpose assets in Eritrea, Yemen's Socotra Island, breakaway Somaliland, and Somalia proper. Meanwhile, the Turks have a foothold in Sudan and Somalia. However, the Emiratis do not see eye to eye with their Turkish counterparts. As a result, Turkey and the Emirates are engaged in a bitter rivalry that expands the wider Red Sea area. The UAE approves of the Ethiopia-Somaliland deal mainly because it signed an agreement of its own with breakaway Somaliland for a share of the Berbera port. Since then, Abu Dhabi's economic and political investments in both Ethiopia and Somaliland have grown. So, two factions have emerged in recent times. On one side are Ethiopia, the UAE, and separatist Somaliland. On the other are Turkey and Somalia. Power dynamics have shifted since, and new coalitions involving regional and extra-regional players continue to take shape. However, geopolitics can rarely ever be so oversimplified. In the past 3 years, the UAE has made substantial investments in the Turkish economy and thus holds some monetary leverage. The same is true in Somalia. The Emiratis manage two key Somali ports, Berbera and Bosaso. The former sits in breakaway Somaliland and the latter in Somalia proper. Currently, however, the Emiratis are in negotiations to acquire the port of Kismayo in the south, and Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud enjoys close political support from his Emirati counterpart. Hence, with all these cross-border investments, it's sometimes difficult to distinguish friend from foe. As such, Somalia has turned into a space of intense competition between Ankara and Abu Dhabi over the past decade. So, in spite of its outstanding relations with Ankara, it would be risky for Mogadishu to break ties with Abu Dhabi entirely. All the same, these activities are all taking place against the backdrop of the Gaza conflict and the Houthi attacks on shipping routes passing through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Egypt, Ethiopia, and the UAE have been hit especially hard, considering their dependence on maritime shipping. The cost of shipping insurance has jumped, and the Houthis are now targeting submarine cables running underneath the Red Sea. This hive of activity underlines the strategic importance of the Red Sea. While Somalia gives Turkey a springboard into the Indian Ocean, it also opens the country up to blowback. Relations with Ethiopia and Somaliland could steadily cool down, while the Emiratis may not appreciate Turkish influence so nearby. The same principle applies to India and Iran, both of which have a troubled relationship with Turkey. A rear base in Somalia would certainly strengthen Turkish power projection, complemented by its growing fleet of aircraft carriers, autonomous naval vehicles, and aerial drones. However, as Turkey enters a new battle space, it must mind the risks. Strength demands accountability. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you approve of what we do, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and mayhaps share the video. In any case, thank you for your time, and Sawal.